Relax your shoulders and follow through. Good. Feel the difference?
Yeah, it's better.
How are things going with Matthew? Paige.
Fine.
What's that mean?
Fine means fine. I really like him. Why can't you just let me like him? I mean, when are you and Dad gonna trust me? I'm not.
Are you having sex? I don't care if you have sex. It's not about the sex. It's confusing when you get close to someone like that. I don't think you'd ever tell him straight out, but you might end up saying something or acting in a way that would draw suspicion, and we can't risk that, Paige.
So I just can't ever have a boyfriend, ever.
Just not Matthew. Any other boy but him.
I have homework.
No, wait. Come on. Let's finish this. Come on, get in position. Relax your shoulders.
Congratulations on this show. I know you guys have already shot the new season. It's one of the best shows, if not the best show on television. It's
Thank
unbelievable.
you very much.
Congratulations. Let's start things off where I feel like everybody wants to sort of start this conversation when it comes to the Americans, is where
Where is
we
that?
are. Well, the fact that we have this feeling that Russia hacked our election and Donald Trump is working with Russia, and will the Americans touch on it? I've seen the first episode, and I know you guys shot it last season, so I'll just say, I think you are smartly not touching on it at all. But was it a conversation that you guys have been having at all?
No, it's not. I mean, do we have it personally? Sure, but no. The safety of our show is that it's the 80s, right. So we have nothing to do with what's going on now. I mean, you know, and I think although there is some twisted interest that Joe and Joel have in the topical element of it right now, being in the news, it has really nothing to do with our story. Our story is truly about a marriage and a family more than the political climate, you know?
It'd be cheap for a show that is otherwise never cheap at all to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we keep a safe distance from it.
So last night's premiere was phenomenal, and my first question, I asked you this in the green room, so you're gonna have to repeat yourself. The show,
no.
Okay. We're just gonna sit in silence for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So the climax of the show was you guys digging a hole for, I think, when I say the climax of the show, I actually mean the last act of the show. And it was phenomenal. It was such a smart way to build tension, but it was a massive hole. And I'm actually curious how much of that hole you actually dug, because it looks like you dug most of it.
Like enough that you actually get sweaty. Like we actually were digging, and yeah, and it was freezing out, and yet we're still sweating.
Like I did feel like I was watching a documentary in real time of you and Matthew digging a hole.
We shot it over multiple days.
Really?
Yeah. Our director, Chris Long, did a really good job of it, actually. And we really were out there at night, and then we built an additional hole on set. But it's actually kind of difficult to do all of that digging because you have to build it and then secure the walls so that they don't come in on you. All the dirt doesn't fall in on you. But we did do a lot of digging. It's true.
Now, one of the great things about this couple and their relationship to the Soviet Russia is how we are sort of nearing the end of the Cold War in the 80s. And so the battle for hearts and minds is kind of changing as the Soviets, at the very least, its economy sort of starts to kind of dry up. And we're seeing in a new character this season who's just sort of come from Russia, who's very anti-Russia and sort of complains about the economic problems of Russia. He could kind of change the minds, maybe, of our two leads, although I feel like between you and Matthew's character, you have kind of been the most sort of diehard heartland of the two. Could her mind get changed?
I always feel there's room for Elizabeth to sway, but Joe, our creators are Joe and Joel, and I'll mention something in passing, like, well, maybe Elizabeth is questioning, and he just looks at me like I've said the most sacrilege thing. He's like, what? No, okay.
So Elizabeth does not question. She remains firmly loyal to the ideology.
It's a little bit more complicated this year, and it definitely, I feel, I love this character, first of all. It's been such a fun, good job, and her strength and her, what people perceive as coldness, and I love all that stuff. I think it's been such a great job. So she definitely has a journey, and this season softens a little bit on that front. But no, I think she, loves where she comes from. I mean, have you ever seen, there's this great hockey documentary called The Red Army, about the hockey team that the United States, at the height of the Cold War.
Like the Miracle team?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's about that hockey team. And it's fascinating because this guy who's been basically jerked around, I mean, really jerked around by the country his whole life, and is begging to leave and can't leave because it's all so important to the country and for propaganda and all of that. At the end of his life, when he's lived and made so much money here in the United States, he still goes back. And he loves it. Like, they fervently love it. And I just think it's a different ideology that we as Americans don't have.
Well, people love their home. I mean, just naturally, I think.
But it's a stronger love. I love it here too. But they really, it's right and wrong, and I think they're more accepting of things being complicated. Do you know what I mean? They're really accepting of things being hard and being complicated and imperfect, and still passionately love it and claim it.
It's been an imperfect, not to really get into a deep conversation about Russia
Let's
here.
get deep.
Although we could. I listened to a podcast this morning with a former ambassador to Russia. But at the same time, there is a sort of a willingness to accept complications, most likely because they've been through so much more structural changes in the last sort of few decades than we have. We haven't had those kind of structural changes in a century at the very least. Maybe since the Civil War is the last time we've seen any sort of internal struggle like that. So there probably is kind of like it happens. Regime
what are you
change.
gonna do? But I'm going back, and I love Russia. I don't know what to say. But anyway, so can someone change their mind? Yes. I mean, I think it's what this storyline this season does to Philip's character on the flip side is very interesting, because I think enlivens him more and brings a tie back for him, where when things start going wrong and this whole food issue, I think it engages him more.
And I love the new character that was introduced last night, their new son, who has come into the picture and is really kind of illustrating that sort of tension for them as to like the ease or how much they're willing to give or take someone's opinion about the motherland, if you will.
Which new son are you talking about? I didn't watch last night.
Oh, it's right. You haven't watched it. Tuan.
Oh, Tuan.
Right. So there's so many great scenes.
We have so many sons on the show.
Well, there's
the Russian one.
Yeah.
There's our son who doesn't talk a lot. There's,
Well,
Tuan.
he has those a couple scenes where he says he should have. This guy complains too much about his homeland. He should have been shot in the head before he was allowed to leave.
It has a great arc this season, like really interesting, and just such a testament to Joe and Joel. I did not see where that character was going at all, and it has we just shot. We're on our last week this week, and we shot one of the last episodes this week, and he has some really good stuff.
Let's talk about a scene from last night's premiere that I loved. I've never seen this scene in a movie or a television show. I thought it was so smart, and it was you teaching your daughter self-defense. Oh. We always see a man teach his son self-defense. We see a man teach his daughter self-defense.
That's interesting.
We never see a strong mother teaching their daughter how to be a strong woman as well. What was it like getting that scene in the script and then shooting it?
Well, interesting, and I think one of the facets of Paige now knowing what we do, you know, I think Elizabeth is really proud of everything she is, and when everything had to be such a secret, there's such a part of you that you don't get to share with these people that you love so much. So I think it's twofold. I think she was really rocked by what happened, that violent incident that happened in front of Paige and Paige's fear about it all. And I think she wants to empower her. And I think, you know, it's something that Elizabeth, it's a part of her DNA, like being able to protect herself and being tough and strong. And it's one of the great things about her.
How convinced is Elizabeth on indoctrinating her?
It's a complicated issue, right? Because when this idea first got brought up, you instantly go to, oh my God, they're gonna have, Paige is gonna be a spy and she's gonna be turning tricks with these guys, you know, and like, you know, like that's not what it is. It's that you would slowly teach, you know, in reality, teach these kids like what you're doing, and then they would maybe over years and years become interested in it, and then maybe become part of the cause, doing anything, being a paper pusher, being, you know, working at a senator's office, or I have no idea.
But if they don't become part of the cause and they open their mouth at all to anyone, it's sort of
Just kill them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's sort of on the parents to
We'll get new kids like Tuan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just call up the mother. Yeah. Bring me a new kid.
I want a new one.
Vietnamese one, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's cute. Yeah. Yeah. So what were you saying? If they don't,
I was saying you might have to kill her.
we might have to kill her. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happens, and I'm sure it does happen. But because, you know, people have kids. So I think hopefully your family is your family. And, you know, another way to look at it, which I sort of did a lot last season, there was a lot of revealing what the family business was in last season. And, you know, there are versions of that that aren't spies. You know, there's the mafia version of that. There's shady business versions of that. So
Trump organization business version of that.
So, you know, there's many versions of that are alive and well. Ours is just, you know, the communist spy version of it. So, you know, it doesn't mean everyone goes along with it, but your parents are still your parents, and you have complicated relationships with parents. You know?
Now, a lot of times with television shows, be it a comedy or a drama, you know, a season or two into something, writers tend to start writing for their leads because they get their strengths, they know what they like, and they want to challenge them in that way. This show, to me, feels like it's very tightly run ship by the creators, and there's very little like, maybe they're writing for your strengths, I mean, because you're amazing in it, but at the same time, I think they're just kind of like, no, this is our story, if you have anything you want to add, go away.
Yeah, definitely. They have what they're gonna do, absolutely. It has nothing to do with us, and they kind of have their stories, and it, in a great way. I mean, you know, there are definitely a few good surprises that surprised me this season.
Well, you're at the very least know you're in good hands. It's not like they're super protective and strict, and then you see the thing at the end of the day, and you're like, oh Christ.
Because sometimes Matthew and I will go, but this is crazy. Like I don't agree with this, and then it always pans out. Like it always ends up in a good spot. So
when was there a moment where you were like, I don't know about this. I don't necessarily agree with this.
I'm trying to remember. It usually has to do with kind of the emotions of the relationship. Like we go, no, but this isn't true. This, like they would think this, and then it always sort of is some marriage of both pairings, Joe and Joel and Matthew and I. And I think we meet in the middle somewhere, and it works out.
So probably more like actorly moments, not like big plot moments. Like I wouldn't get up and move over here like this because I feel this, and the director's like, could you just do it?
Yeah, we get a lot of that. Yeah, but
every actor does.
I wouldn't do they've you know, we kind of trust them now. We just, you know, there's not a lot of arguing because it always ends up great and surprising.
So I have to ask this, and it's fascinating. I never ask personal questions of the people that I'm on stage with, and I apologize for even starting that, prefacing it this way. I just want you to know it's not going to go that deep or be that annoying. But you and Matthew started dating while you were on the show, right? You met on the show, basically. The show is about a couple that's like an arranged marriage that learns to love each other essentially in the first couple seasons. And a lot of the spine is in many ways can be seen as metaphors for how a nuclear family sort of blossoms or hurts each other or thrives. Right. That seems layered upon layered as a sort of relationship that's just starting. Was that ever weird, or was that always just like a fun joke for the two of you as you were sort of starting to date, or even now that you're sort of, are a nuclear family?
Yes, it's all very interesting. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think regardless of personal stuff, it's a fascinating premise. Regardless of the spy stuff, if you just took that, forced partnership alone, forced marriage, arranged marriage, and that they slowly start to fall in love, that alone is interesting enough to me. Without the, spy stuff and sleeping with other people and the trust issues, and I mean, it's so layered and good. It's like one of my favorite relationships I've seen. It's so interesting, and it feels very, all those questions, especially last season with the push and pull of the Martha storyline and all of that. It feels very relatable in a relationship, in a real working and not working relationship.
Well, that's the amazing thing that the show has always done. I mean, even last night in the episode where you're teaching your daughter self-defense, it's like, sure, you're trying to indoctrinate her maybe to become a spy, but you're also just a woman teaching your daughter self-defense.
Yeah.
Which is a very normal thing. I mean, maybe not to throw her around the garage, but like a fairly normal thing.
Or maybe, I don't know. I always can see the kind of averageness or normal aspect of Elizabeth and her parenting. I stand by it. I think she's great, and I think, anytime people say she's cold or, doesn't make enough cookies or Halloween costumes, I love Elizabeth. Like, I wish I could be more like her.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because, like, she's such a good female example. She's very good at what she does. She is, totally.
Happy International Women's Day.
Ta-da!
These are like the murderous spy from the Americans.
She, definitely of the two, I would argue she's the better soldier.
Yeah.
Which
She doesn't waver as much.
She doesn't waver, which in turn keeps her family more safe, or keeps her family with a parent alive. She's just like really true to what she doesn't care what anyone else thinks. And I think that's a really good quality in a woman. Like, she doesn't change what she knows is right because someone else is in the room or because it's going to make them uncomfortable, which is also, I feel like, very Russian. It's like, this is what I believe, and this is what I believe. It doesn't matter what you believe. This is what I believe.
Yeah.
And I admire it. She's tough shit.
How often is it sort of more beneficial for you to sort of keep the framework of or the grounding of this is just a relationship and this is just a family, and try to keep the politics or any of the history of the Cold War out of your head while you're shooting? Like, is it easier to perform thinking of it just as this is a woman who's protecting her daughter and protecting her family?
I do tend to go mostly with the relationship. I tend to go mostly with the reality and less of the history and Cold War. I think you kind of have to start from a personal standpoint, I think. And that's mostly what we do. But every once in a while, watching like that documentary on that hockey player, it just reminds you of the world. It just gives you a context, kind of a tone that you forget about sometimes. But mostly I go personal. And it's easier to.
Did you do any research before the first season or during the seasons on the Cold War of that era? Did you become a little fascinated by it?
Yeah, a little bit. I've always sort of been fascinated with spy stuff. But I did. I read like a little bit on Putin You know,
got.
yeah, it's still going. You know, I just read, it's just so different than how Americans are raised, and just being a part of that indoctrination from a very young age, and, you know, and it's still going on.
So how many, is this the last season or is next season the last season?
So we're in season 5. We're
Right.
just starting season 5.
Yeah.
We finished shooting our last episode this week. And then next season will be only 10 episodes, and we will end the story there.
Are you happy ending there? Do you know where it ends as of right
I
now?
have no idea.
You have no idea.
No idea.
How does it feel to know that it's ending? You know, we have one more season to shoot and then it's going to end, but you don't really know how it's going to end.
We never do, but I like where it's gone so far, so I feel like go for it. And it's really cool that they are doing an ending. Like rather than just, you know, continuing on, and we have a million new twans, and you know what I mean? Like I like that they're, you know, hedging their bets, and they're saying, no, we're gonna start something and we're gonna finish it, and I imagine it will have something to do with the Cold War ending, although then it begins again. So.
The end of the show will the sort of epilogue will be like 25 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Donald Trump giving a
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah. But
Sergei Kislyak.
yeah, I mean, but I like that it has an ending. I think it's cool to see a story out, and I'm glad that FX let us do that.
Well, it definitely makes it so the show doesn't feel like a lot of other television shows feel like, which is spinning their wheels, sort of trying to restart the same storylines over and over again for the purpose of having 10 seasons.
And in a way, as big as season 4 felt story-wise, you know, Martha left, and then all these other people we said goodbye to, in a way, season 5 gets even smaller and more contained, and it sort of slows down. So I think it's gearing up for a big season 6.
You think, but you don't know.
But I don't know. It could be all one day. Who knows? Yeah.
It'd just be the day of the fall of the wall. You know?
Exactly. Every minute. Yeah.
So it'd be an episode of 24.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Who has a question out here, right there?
Me, hello. Hi, Keri.
Hi.
I love this show. It's so underrated.
Thank you.
I wish more people would watch it. But it's like my little secret, so I kind of don't want them to watch it.
It's cool to be the underdog. It's like the best place to be.
Not the underdog anymore. You got the Emmys on your side.
I know.
You guys were snubbed at the Golden Globes, by the way.
Thanks. We had fun, though. We got drunk.
So you guys are known for, when I think of the Americans, I think about the suitcase, the tooth pulling.
Oh, yeah, the tooth pulling.
Can we expect any of those intense scenes from season 5?
I'm trying to remember. You know, we're in our last uphill sprint, so I'm like, I have not a thought in my head.
You had the X-Acto knife last night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, poor guy. And I love that, like, I don't know if they kept it in, but I said something, like, nice to him. I was like, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. It's fine.
I love that. Sorry, not to interrupt, but I love the cold look between the two of you in that moment as well, where you didn't have to say anything to each other, but it's like, oh, we're going to kill him.
He's got to die. He's got to die. He's got to go. Is there any? I love that tooth pulling. Tommy Schlamme directed that episode, and he's so great. He, you know, was one of the creators of West Wing, and like, he's just. I loved that episode.
That's the greatest name I've ever heard. Tommy Schlamme.
Yeah, Thomas Schlamme, but we call him Tommy Schlamme. He's amazing. Are there any scenes comparable to that? I mean, in different ways. Like I said, this season it gets really small and focused and extremely relationship oriented, and but in a way, for bad or good, Elizabeth and Philip are sort of together this season. They're very much in sync with each other. There's less push and pull with each other. The push and pull is with the outside world. But I can't think of one. I mean, there are certainly great surprises and some real intimate things coming up towards the end of the season. But the tooth pulling scene was pretty. I mean, there's nothing that quite rivals that. I don't think.
Next question.
Hi, Keri.
Hey.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Congrats on the 5th season.
Thank
and
you.
also, your shoes are killer.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I am a huge fan of your work in Waitress.
Oh,
It's one of my favorite
Thanks.
movies.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you got a chance to see the show and if you got to speak with Jessie Mueller, who plays Jenna, about the character, had any sort of involvement.
I did not get to see the show. I think I was having a baby during that time. But you know what? I got the opportunity to present them at the Tonys. So I got to meet them kind of squished backstage as they were going on, and they were all so lovely and excited and good, and but I did not get to see the show. And she's moving on to something else, or no,
Waitress was directed by Adrienne Shelley, right?
It was.
What's it like to see? Yeah, give Adrienne Shelley a round of applause. She's an amazing, wonderful actress.
Yeah.
What's it like to see? Obviously she unfortunately passed away not long after she had her directorial debut with Waitress. But what's it like to sort of see her directorial debut that you were part of live on?
I know, it's
and
pretty
sort of,
amazing. Yeah.
Carry her story on.
Totally. Amazing. I mean, I think, she had such a clear vision of what she wanted that movie to be. We shot that movie in 20 days. She knew exactly how she wanted it to look, she was meticulous about things. Some might say bossy. And now I get it. Like, I think some part of her world knew, like, I have to be so specific about this. This is my shot. And, but yeah, Andy, her husband, just threw a big event for her. It was cold, so it must have been this past winter. And I got to see Sophie, her daughter, and she's all grown up, and she's in the movie. She's a little girl at the end of the movie. And yeah, it absolutely has lived on. It was a really sweet little poppy movie.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more. Oh, you're right here. Next
Here he is.
with a microphone.
With Elizabeth,
Sorry.
with Elizabeth being the colder, more calculated soldier, is that something that evolved over the course of the series, or was that in place from the very beginning?
I think their idea from the beginning was sort of a role reversal, that Philip was the more emotionally available one, the kind of charming one, and I think Elizabeth was always the sort of cold-ish, more staunch supporter, fervent one. But I think it sort of takes both to make a team, and I think they work off of their strengths. But I've loved that because I've had a chance to have a real evolution in it. And I love the beginning of the story, how they weren't sort of in love, and then she fell in love with the Gregory character, who was just as passionate as she was. He opened her up, and and then she did eventually choose to be with Philip. I really loved the progression of that story.
Before the series ends.
Thank you. Thanks.
It makes sense. It makes sense, and I mean this in the most unsexist way possible. But it makes sense that she would have to be the colder one. That a woman spy in the 1980s, a woman boss in the 1980s, if anything, has to be the colder one and has to consistently show that she is not weak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that definitely carries over. I mean, we see it still so much. I think women are just judged a lot more harshly than men, just in general. And by the way, women are harsh on women, so there's, it's not just men being harsh. But yes, I think especially being a spy, I just think it's smarter. If you're going to be sleeping with all these people, it's going to be better for you in the long run to be kind of checked out about it. One of my favorite scenes, even though it's a tiny little scene in this season, is the scene between Philip and Elizabeth. It's actually one that Matthew directs again this season, and it's one of his scenes. And Elizabeth is running a guy in this season, and Philip is sort of in this moment, kind of looking at her like, "You're kind of into that. You like that guy," and she kind of stops everything and is like, "No, I don't. Like, maybe you do that, but that's not okay with me. I don't like that guy." And I think that's the difference between them. Like, I think Philip allows himself to open up to people and kind of dabble in that a little bit. And I don't think Elizabeth is like that. I think it's very clear to her. She loves Philip, and she does that for her work, and as much as that person needs her to do it.
As someone who works regularly with their significant other sometimes, what are some of the best sort of bits of advice you could give as someone who co-stars with your significant other and gets directed by your significant other at times? How do you do it? There's the cliche phrasing of it. How do you do it?
How do you do it?
Yeah. You're a woman with a child and a job. How do you do it?
Do it. You know, it's so funny. My friend, I did this incredible amazing trip to Alaska, to the Arctic 2 summers ago with the Sierra Club, and the head of the Sierra Club, Michael Brune. And we did this, it was just so amazing, and that we were trying to raise awareness about this specific area that Obama did end up protecting, which now might all go away. But anyway, so we were there, and I was there with Rebecca Solnit, who's this incredible writer and feminist and environmentalist, and she was saying, you know, that's the difference between men and women. Michael Brune, who is this incredibly, you know, he looks very presidential. He's sort of tall, and he looks like a football player, and he's handsome, and he's very capable, and he has 3 kids at home. And she goes, the difference is, you know, when Michael Brune gets interviewed, people don't go, how do you do it? Like, how do you do it with 3 kids? It's like, he has 3 kids, but no one asks him about that. And they don't, when he walks on stage, she was saying, they don't go, and the leggy Michael Brune walks on stage, he's wearing a dark pantsuit with blah, blah, blah. You know, it's so different for women. I always get asked how I...
So wait, what are you wearing? Who are you wearing?
And by the
today?
way, I love fashion. Like, you know, it's fun. But it's a different thing that
I've always found the, like, how do you do it question to be, like, I meant it as a joke just now. I find it, like, fascinating to be like I grew up with a mother who worked 8 to 5 and overtime all the time, and no one ever asked her how she did it. It was just her job, and she took care of her kid. And then she went to night school. Like, it was just a regular thing.
Yeah.
So I find it so weird when we ask, like, to be totally cynical about it, like celebrities, how
I know,
they
you're
do
like,
it. It's like,
they have a babysitter.
yeah.
They have a nanny. Yeah, like,
Make good money.
they don't have the kid strapped to their back the whole time.
But in regards to working together, that's different.
It's absolutely different. And so it's weird. I mean, it's everything you think. It can be really great. Like, we were shooting till 4 in the morning on Friday, and you're sort of miserable, and luckily we have such a cool crew, then we all laugh together. But it's kind of fun to be, you know, if you're gonna be miserable and outside in 19-degree weather, you can at least look over and it's the person you kind of like, you know, and rather than some stranger, you know, you're like, what's up? Cool. Like, you know, at least we can, like, I don't know, plan a trip or, like, talk about what groceries we haven't bought, or, you know, did you get diapers? I forgot. But so there's pros and cons. Like, you get to see each other in these really fun, great moments where you're really proud of someone, but you get to see, you know, someone at their crankiest too. You know, most people go to work and you have a whole other thing. You know, we go to work and I'm like, I saw you do that. I saw you do that thing. Yeah, I was watching. I was standing right there. You know.
You ready to go? Rolling? Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. No, fuck you. Go ahead. There's
I-
definitely moments like that where the crew's like, uh-oh.
Has he ever had to direct you in a, like, salacious scene, or have you guys sort of planned it so that
I was secretly hoping so, as just repayment. I feel like I've had to watch way too many sex scenes with him. So I was sort of pulling for it. But it didn't happen. My wish didn't come true this year.
That's going to be your one thing in the writer's room. It's like, Matthew's directing scene episode 6, get a sex scene in there.
Remember that tall Australian from last year?
Keri, thank you so much for being here. The Americans is on FX Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. It's one of the best shows on TV. Everybody, Keri Russell, thank you so much.
Thank you.